Welcome back. Now it's nearly the end of 2023 and this is going to be my final design for this year. So happy new year to everybody, and I hope you enjoy this very simple and delicate design. There's been lots of sparkle and glitter and brightly coloured baubles over the last couple of weeks, so we're going to finish the new year with a calming, very relaxing colour combination. And I'm using this boat shaped, banana sort of shaped container. I've possibly used this before, and if I have, then I'll link it just here so you can pop back and look at a different design. But I'm going to create quite a simple design, low down, with two elegant candles. You could use it as a table centre. It would sit beautifully on a sideboard or a hall table. But if you want some inspiration for flowers for the church, then this is a really good design that won't be too heavy on the budget. Mechanics for today are some green floral foam, and I've lined the container with a thin wedge. You might be able to notice that I've got one side slightly taller than the other, and the reason for that is because I'm going to be using two candles and I want to raise one slightly higher. So I've chosen a white candle. I would like to have had something that matched my container, but I wasn't able to get anything that was the same colour. But the colour of my candlestick does blend with my rose that I've chosen, and I'm going to use them in two different levels. So one a bit higher on what is my left hand side as I'm working, and one next to it but not quite in the centre. So I'm starting to create a bit of asymmetry. So we haven't got those candles right in the middle, I haven't got them balanced on either side, I've got them offset to one side. Just really to show you a different style and a different way of arranging. We've seen lots of designs with candles in the middle, so I'm going to go with a slightly different version. Now with a boat-shaped container like this, it is really lovely to continue that shape on either side. And on many videos that I've done with this style of container, I've continued it up, sometimes taller on one side and shorter on the other. But this time I'm going to keep it quite contained and quite low down so that the candles are raised above the fresh flowers. And my foliage choice to get me started is going to be the Florist Ruscus, and I've chosen this because it's quite soft and delicate, and I wanted something that was quite lightweight and airy. And I'm going to slide that down quite deep into the container, so I'm raising it above the container slightly, but I'm not going too tall. I don't want to make anything that's really large and overbearing. So Ruscus in general comes in nice long pieces, and I've just used the end tips. It's going to be symmetrical, as in the length is the same on either side. But of course, because I've not placed those candles in the middle, my design isn't visually going to be balanced. It's going to be unbalanced or asymmetrical. And then I'm going to use the remainder of that Ruscus just to continue that green colour combination right the way through the middle, so that I'm carrying that colour from one side to the other, so that your eye is going to rhythmically move from one side. And this is a really good way of arranging flowers. Start with your foliage outline. It doesn't have to be Ruscus, it could be anything that you can get hold of. But for today, we're thinking fairly delicate, nothing too robust and nothing too heavy. If you're lucky enough to have had flowers delivered over Christmas, you might want to consider cutting those down and making a pretty arrangement. And I'm imagining that the candles lit on New Year's Eve is going to be a really special occasion, quite romantic. And as we sit and welcome in the new year, you can really enjoy this arrangement as it sits on the sideboard or on a little coffee table or side table. If I tilt it forward for you, you'll see that I've just gone around the outside. There isn't any foliage yet in the middle part of my Oasis foam. I've just created that outline. So what I'm going to do here for the middle is, instead of using longer pieces, I'm just going to cut off the individual sections. And if I just move this to one side, I can show you in the camera. So I'm just going to remove these little offshoots here. So I've got several small pieces to cover the foam. I really don't want to make this visually heavy, and just a few little pieces are going to be enough before I start putting my fresh flowers in. Now I'm going to be using some florist grade roses, but this would be amazing with some supermarket flowers. You could use a simple mixed bunch, you could use roses. We're going to start having spring flowers coming through in the new year, and they would look really lovely. A simple bunch of iris. We're going to have tulips starting very soon in the supermarkets, and they would work really well as well. So this is a type of design that you could pretty much use any flowers, supermarket or florist flowers, or anything that you might have in your own garden. And if you were lucky enough to have had flowers as a gift for Christmas and they're starting to look a bit sad in the vase, it might be a good opportunity for you to take them apart and create a really simple design like this. Just a few more pieces to really help cover the foam on my left hand side. Now this is going to be an all-round design, so you're going to see it from the front and the back, but I quite often mention that if you're on a tight budget and you aren't going to see the back of the arrangement, then you could simply arrange the flowers on one side and just cover the back with foliage. Now it is really important, if you're arranging in any type of floral foam, whether it's the green foam or it's the more sustainable agro-wool type foams, you still need to ensure it's completely covered, whether it's with flowers or foliage, because that prevents the evaporation of water, and a light little misting of water every now and again. And of course, remember to top up the floral foam with fresh water every 2 or 3 days to ensure that it stays moist, to keep your flowers nice and fresh. And those hints and tips will ensure that your flowers are going to last a longer period of time. So at the moment you're looking at the back. If you're going to do it as a church design, you can quite simply arrange your flowers the side that's looking at me, but I'm going to do them so the colour is varied from front to back. The rose that I've got to use is called Vendela, and it is a florist rose, but you do quite often get this in a lovely mixed bunch from the supermarket. It's what I often refer to as a champagne coloured rose, because it's not quite white, but it certainly isn't a creamy yellow, and it has a very slight pink tone to it, which gives me a nice connection with my container. Any damaged petals can be removed. And what I'm going to do is keep them quite close down towards the foam. I am going to make this piece of ruscus here, a bit shorter because it's sticking up in a direction that I don't like. So we push that down a little bit further. So I'm keeping my flower content nestled in amongst the greenery within that outline shape that I created. I'm going to now add some more roses to the end. So I'm trying to copy that boat shape and repeat the shape of my container. I'm going to do 2 on either end. So that one is on the right, this one is on my left as I'm working. And what I'm now going to look at doing is almost joining the dots. So you can see I've got one here, then a big gap and a rose in the middle, then a big gap and a rose on the end. So I'm looking to put something in between to get that colour link running right the way through the middle. So with my third rose, instead of popping it in the front here, which will end up with quite a solid line of roses running across the front, I'm going to put it more towards the back. That's going to give us that depth that you hear me talk about, and it staggers the colour back and forth. So I get a more rhythmic style to my arrangement rather than a very severe solid line at the front. So my next one is also going to go more towards the back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this one over this way, because I think when I started I was imagining I had 5 roses and I've actually got 6, so I can pop another one in that gap there, and now they're more evenly distributed. So even the so-called professionals like me make a little mistake every now and again. So this is maybe a bit more European in its styling, where you have those 2 candles offset from the centre and your rose is quite low down in the design. Depth is created by bringing flowers to the back, and that gives you that 3-dimensional effect. And I'm trying to keep my flower content in proportion with my container. So I don't need anything that's too big and too overpowering. I need small flowers that work well with the size of my candles and the size of my container. And all of these are called the principles and elements of design. And don't forget, there are a few handouts that you can purchase on my Etsy store which explains to you in very basic terms what those principles and elements of design are. Now, to pick up on the colouring of my container, I've got this amazing wax flower. What I love about the wax flower, if I haven't already told you, is that it has a beautiful lemon scent to it when you cut into the stem. And I'm going to cut these really short, down low, close alongside that foam, so that we're not making the design any taller or any wider. I'm trying to keep it as small and delicate as possible. You will see many arrangements where I extend the colour, just going to make that a bit shorter, where I extend the colour above the container, but for today I'm keeping it nice and small and short. And if you are having a buffet maybe for New Year, then this would be lovely in the middle or the back of the table. You could light those candles and you know that it's not going to get damaged or knocked over while people are leaning forward and taking the different food items from the table. So far a very simple design with some wax flower and some creamy roses. Now, I did mention earlier that tulips are going to be coming into season very soon, and I've already got a few, and this was the closest colour I could get to my container. We've been having tulips in for a little while, probably since about November, but it's one flower that I do try to only use when it's in its true season, because the quality isn't normally very good if you buy it out of season, and you get a much stronger tulip with a bigger head if you use it within its proper season. And what I'm going to do with the tulip, because the head shape is very similar to the rose, to give me a contrast in shape, I'm going to reflex back the petals so that I've got a more open shape flower, and it gives me a real contrast. So gently does it. It helps if your tulip is a few days old, because you can get that flexibility in the head. But doesn't that look lovely? Very different. It now gives a completely different shape to that flower head. And what I'm going to do with these is concentrate them more around where the candles are, because that has become my focal point. I'm just going to remove, that poor rose is being moved around left, right and centre, but I need to leave enough space in there for my tulip, so you can see how beautifully that sits in that section. I'm going to do the same with this next tulip, and I'll hold it up. Hopefully you can clearly see in the camera then exactly what I'm doing. We're going to bend these petals back. You can do this with the rose, and it's a very fashionable thing to do for weddings at the moment, and that gives that beautiful shape. I absolutely love that style. So this one now is going to come alongside my candles, but slightly to the right, and I'm going to vary the heights so we don't get those two headlights staring at you. And then my final one is going to come more towards the back, in between the two roses that are in this position here, and I can raise this one slightly higher so that when you're looking at it from the front, you can still see the tulip, but it creates that three-dimensional effect. Now, had I run the tulips, they're not gerbera, had I run the tulips across the front of my arrangement at the very beginning, I would have ended up with a design that was really flat and didn't have any contour. All right, so this one is going to sit up the back here. Let's just check the position. That looks absolutely gorgeous. Now what I'm going to do is just finish off with a really small amount of the wax flower, so that we're bringing a bit of the pinky colour, the pinky sort of purpley darker shade, right the way here towards the edge. Otherwise the green ends are looking a bit dominant. So one more piece, spend a couple of minutes choosing a section that's not too heavy, and that can be fed in onto the opposite side, and I'm delighted with the way that's turned out. So that's a little bit of a different look for a new year. We've not got any sparkles or any glitter, something very delicate and quite pretty. Could quite easily do this as a gift for somebody as well, and it's very easy to transport as it's nice and small and compact. And here we are, all ready for New Year's Eve. So thanks as ever for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. And I look forward to seeing you for the next video in 2024. Happy New Year, thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.